Hello, everyone, and welcome to this next episode of Shenmue Dojo Interviews. I apologise that it's been a bit longer than usual between shows, but I have a really good guest for you today. So, my guest today is a staple of the Shenmue community. You may have heard his music across various platforms the last few years, where he uses Shenmue music inspired with 80s synthwave to create an infusion of Shenmue music with a modern take. This has also spilled over into other platforms and games such as Ghost of Tsushima and the Final Fantasy series. More recently, he has released a new EP called Charade, and he continues his good work on the Shenmue Italia fan site. My guest today is Ryo X. Welcome to the show, Ryo X, or Ricardo, as I should call you. How are you doing on this fine Saturday morning?
I'm very good, thanks, Matt. Thanks for the invite. I'm super happy to be here.
No, I'm more than happy to get you on. You've been on my list for a while, and I took a short break from interviews because just getting things together, and unfortunately, real life takes over. I'm sure you know, but I'm glad to actually finally get you on the show. So I do this with all my guests, and my first question, sort of before we get into your music and everything else around it, is I want to get a sort of a rundown of your gaming history and how you actually discovered Shenmue itself.
That's an interesting one, honestly. As for my gaming history, I started, quite early. I was like, 5 years old, and
Yeah.
my father had, one of those Commodore 64.
Oh yes, I had one of those. They
Oh
were
man, that
brilliant.
brilliant! You remember those floppy disks that were huge?
Yeah.
Uh, and I had tons of them. Don't even know actually if were all legit or there was some kind of piracy at the time, but had tons of them really. And that was my first approach with gaming. Then at some point, my father decided that it was better for me to deal with personal computers and
Okay.
learn how to use that, which I did pretty well, honestly. That's what I'm doing for a living right now, right? I'm working on IT. But yeah, I always wanted to play. I wanted to play video game. So I started with a PlayStation. Not the best console ever to start video gaming. I know, but that was my entry point. And I have an uncle that was a video game freak. Really, he loved playing everything. But he was living quite far away from me. We were in south. I'm from Italy, so I was living in south of Italy at that point, and he
Yeah.
was living in up north in Milan. He once came back during summer, around I think like was 1999 or 2000, something like that, and he came back with a Dreamcast. I went to the airport with my father, picking him up, and I was like, "Hey, uncle, did you bring something for me?" And he was like, "Yeah, I have a gift for you. Well, it's mine, but you can use it as well." I was like, "Interesting." And it was the Dreamcast, and that was my actually the first time that I saw Shenmue because he was already playing it.
Okay.
Uh, I tried to convince him to kind of give it to me, at least for a couple of months to play it at home, and it did happen. And I was like what, 12 years old. So Shenmue, as you know, didn't have any translation in Italian, and me being a small Italian fella, I really didn't know English at the time.
Yeah.
Uh, and I remember playing it, with the dictionary side by side because I couldn't grasp few things, but I didn't know so many words. And at the time, there wasn't, smartphones or there was already the internet, luckily, but there wasn't too much, it wasn't easy to get the information at the time. So it was me there in front of this huge TV that we had playing Shenmue and with a dictionary. And I still remember today, I didn't know what job mean. And when at the point when Rio said, "Okay, I need to find a job," I was like, "Okay, what is a job?" And then I searched in the dictionary, and I still remember that, and it's good memory.
Nice, and that's a very different take on things because obviously, as you say, no Italian translation. Which with that, obviously, no Italian translation that it interrupted the experience, or do you think it actually helped your experience with it?
Man, I'm so thankful for that, because I think that without Shenmue, I wouldn't actually, learn how to properly. You can still feel my accent, and some words are off, but I wouldn't actually learn English. So possibly I wouldn't be here in London, where I'm based today. So I'm so thankful for that, because it gave me, the drive to start properly learning the language, because I wanted to know more. I wanted actually to learn to live the experience at its best. Luckily, also Shenmue, from a language point of view, is not too complex.
Yeah, yeah.
So once actually you get the gist out of it, it's fairly easy to play it anyway.
Yeah, it is, and it's one of those games. I think once you get the grasp of it, it's not too difficult to understand. I think obviously it gets criticised a little bit for its pacing, but that's part of the experience in my book. So obviously you played Shenmue 1. Did you pick up Shenmue 2 very soon after that, or was it a lot longer after?
And then it was so long after that, because of course Dreamcast went away with my uncle when he wanted it back.
Damn.
And my father was still of the idea that he didn't want to spend so much money on buying a new console, new games and stuff.
Yeah.
So I started actually, putting my money on my piggy bank, and it did take some time. And at that point, Shenmue 2 on Xbox happened. Man, I mean, it took some time, and that's when I actually bought my first console with my actual money.
Yeah.
Well, they were my actual money, because of course it was always financed by my father at the end of the day. But it was my first purchase when it comes to video games. I got an Xbox. Actually, I got Shenmue 2 even before I actually had an Xbox. And I had this kind of small temple that I did at home, where I was counting the day, and I was praying in front of Shenmue 2, saying, "Okay, I can't wait to play this game." And finally, it did happen, and it was even well. Let me say that Shenmue 1 is my favorite game of the series,
Yeah.
but the experience that I had with Shenmue 2 was just breathtaking. Really, it was just amazing.
Shenmue 2, I don't know, it's the word I use, it goes crazy. It does so
Yeah.
much in that game in terms of the story, in terms of the world building. It's a very different experience to Shenmue 1, which is a lot more homely, a lot more, it feels a lot closer, doesn't it? I think is the way I describe it.
Well, also, for that time, I was reading a lot of manga, and I was so deep into, Japanese culture.
Hmm.
So having the chance of actually living in Japan, because that's what you're doing with Shenmue 1, right? So
Yeah.
you're actually living in Japan. You're a Japanese boy. You don't feel the distance between, Rio and yourself. You are Rio. That's the amazing thing. So for me, it was like, I want to go and visit Japan. I'm gonna play Shenmue. That feels like I'm there.
Yeah, it does. And I think that's part of the appeal of it, especially
Yeah.
to us in Europe and also in America, where I think it's done a lot better in the West than I think they anticipated. Actually, most of us, certainly for me, it was my first real sort of exposure to Japanese culture and sort of the way they do things
Hmm.
and their customs. So it just piqued an interest in me from the offset when I played it, and that's just the world building itself. When you take into account, obviously, the storytelling that's in the games. I mean, name me a more epic opening scene of a video game. You're going to struggle, I think, in my opinion. And then obviously take into account the music.
Oh man. For me, but I've been playing music since I was, yeah, I think 10, something like that, 10 or 12. But anyway, even before that, I always had that kind of thing that when I had, beautiful music, I was really into everything that was, even if it was a movie, whatever was the media. If it had, good music, it had my attention. So, man, Shenmue was like love at first sight, really. The quality of that that music and the composition, it was just crazy for the time in a video games. But generally speaking, when you see the other media of the time, man, that composition is really top notch.
It is. I mean, you can see where the money went,
Yeah,
quite frankly,
yeah,
can't you? You can see how much they spent on it. I mean, they had full like orchestras doing recordings in the studios, and I mean, you can get orchestral versions of the soundtrack, obviously online and various other places. I don't. It was a no expense spared thing. It was a point to say, look, we can. It was a movie quality experience, especially with the soundtrack. I think.
yes. Man, still today, I played that music so many times in my home that even my mother now, 20 years after that, if she hears the first few notes, she's able to say, "Oh, that's Shenmue." Even if Shen played the game, she knows about it because that music is so beautiful. It is so recognizable that really it's just amazing.
It is. And slight tangent question. Obviously, yesterday they released the pre-orders for that music box. Have you ordered yourself
Yes.
one?
Yes. Like I was, I didn't even actually read the news, and I saw comment from James and was like, okay, I got one. I was like, you got one of what? What is this? And in like 20 seconds, I just went to the website, pre-ordered that. I couldn't find my debit card. Where's my wallet? Did I lost my wallet? Who cares if I lost my wallet? I need to pre-order this thing. Yeah, I got mine. Can't wait, man. That's such a beautiful. And also, it came with this score signed uh, by the composer. So
Yeah.
it's just crazy. It's
I
for the
know.
price, it's amazing.
Yeah, I do. I saw it and it was an instant buy. I mean, I'm a sucker for the Shenmue gear at the best of
Yeah,
times, let alone. But that music, and it just sounds really, really nice, and the quality of it is really good. Plus the signed score, I couldn't
yeah.
say no to that.
For that price, I think it's a bargain. Also, I think so. It's only 200 pieces, something like 250.
250, yeah.
I
So
see.
it's a rare item.
Yeah, so yeah, good, item for my collection. That's also one of the good parts, of starting to be an adult and then you start earning money for yourself, is that you can spend money on whatever you want, basically. And I have so many new things now at home. I don't even have space anymore. My partner, she's not super happy about it, but she knows that my love for Shenmue is like really, it's the real deal.
Yeah, and my wife's very similar actually. I've got a shelf up in one of our other rooms. I'm gonna have to move it over actually, and then I've got some bits and pieces in a cupboard that when I can get it all out, I don't think she's going to be too impressed. Plus, I've got everything
Uh,
else on the way from limited run games, etc.
Yes, I was about to say that she didn't know yet about the limited run edition,
Oh,
so
just oh,
maybe she's gonna know after this interview.
get a big box turn up and she asks you, what's this? Oh dear. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I think they see us coming sometimes, but it's all very good.
Mm.
Right, I'm going to fast forward into obviously you've played Shenmue One, you've played Shenmue Two. When did you discover the Shenmue community? How did you come across it?
Uh, I think actually, well, Shenmue Dojo was like really the best at the time. When I started actually surfing the internet, it was the place to go to retrieve any kind of information, especially after Shenmue 2 ended, and you wanted to know if there was a Shenmue 3, right? So the forum was there. I can read a bit of French as well. So Shenmue Master was of course another place to go. But yeah, I came in contact with actively with the community only when Facebook happened and Shenmue 500K happened, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
and at that point everything started. I mean, I wasn't really active in the community. I was more like passive listener. But I would say that I started interacting more maybe when I started creating the music as Ryo X, which it did happen completely randomly out of nowhere. I wasn't expecting now, for 4 years later to have so many songs out there. But yeah.
Excellent. And we'll touch on your sort of music in a bit. I just thought if we go into, obviously we had the gap between Shenmue 2 and Shenmue 3. Talk me through sort of your thoughts on not just Shenmue 3, but obviously the Kickstarter, the announcement. What did you think about the whole package together?
I'm happy as it is right now. I was super excited when they announced the Kickstarter. I thought that it was the best solution at the time because I was sure that there wasn't anyone ready to invest the amount of money that Shenmue deserved to just have the third episode, right? So that was the best compromise, and I was happy with that. And I was also sure that it would have, broke some kind of yeah, now he's again in the Guinness World Record for the fastest game to be funded on Kickstarter. I was sure that it was going that way. I really didn't know from that time how much money Yu Suzuki would have needed to make a game as Shenmue 1. I wasn't thinking about Shenmue 2 because Shenmue 2 was too big already, right? So I was really hoping to have something similar to Shenmue 1. Did it happen? I mean, it kind of did because Shenmue 3 is a good product, but we all know that it has some issues here and there.
Yeah.
Combat system being one of them. I'm not a one of the fan of the combat system. It does work, and it is a good starting point for if they're gonna reuse that for Shenmue 4. But of course, when you put side by side that combat system from Shenmue 3 and combat system from Shenmue 2, which is Virtual Fighter basically, you really see the difference. Story wise, I'm really happy how it did go. It didn't, we discovered so many new things. Plus, man, you can feel the love that Yu Suzuki has for this game from every single frame. Really, it's just a pure act of love, and you can feel it as a fan. You can see that he did his best for us, and I enjoyed it. I already enjoyed it like 3 times. I did 3 different runs. Two on PS4, one on PC. Well, now I'm gonna start another one on PS5. Uh, Love it. I wouldn't say it's my favorite entry in the game, but I mean that's a solid game.
It is, and it's. I think you touched on this with the combat system. It's a basis for a Shenmue 4 because the systems are solid. It works. I mean, I know the stamina system attracts a bit of attention
Yeah,
for whatever, whether you like it or you don't like it. But I think the core systems are there. If they just touch those up and tidy them up and polish them off, I mean, I think they've got a really good system there. And the game itself felt like a Shenmue game. The world was detailed. You felt engrossed in it. You could get lost in it. So, considering what they had and the time frame and everything else that's gone on with it, the amount of love and effort that went into that game, yes, there are some shortcomings. We all know what they are.
yeah,
But at the same time, I think we need to be grateful for what we've actually got.
absolutely, absolutely. I totally agree. And I think it is also a good entry point for people that never played the entire saga, right? So, of course, nowadays, if you present to someone Shenmue 1 and Shenmue 2, you can find someone that agree to pay a game that it does look old, even if it looks spectacular nowadays. But of course, with Shenmue 3, you have the visual aspect that is a next gen game basically. It looks gorgeous, and it did happen with a couple of friends of mine that they started Shenmue 3 and then they stopped and they said, okay, I'm not really into retro gaming, but these games look interesting. Let me go back to Shenmue 1, and then we're going to talk Shenmue 3 once is the time. And they started playing Shenmue 1 with the the translation in Italian that we did with Shenmue Italia back in the day, because we were able to do a translation for the first game only on PC version, which make things easier for people. Because of course, the good things about Shenmue 3 is multi-language. I think it does everything in there when it comes to subtitles.
Yeah, it does.
So it's easier for even for Italian people, which are so lazy. Trust me, when it comes to read in another language, they just want to read in Italian. So if it's not in Italian, they're not gonna play it.
That's interesting. And as you say, the I forgot about the Italian translation that you guys did actually for the PC version. As you say, it gets you into it and it makes things easier, it makes it accessible, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So going into sort of just briefly Shenmue 4, and also the anime. What are your hopes for those two things in terms of Shenmue 4 and the anime coming out potentially next year?
So what I'm hoping for Shenmue 4 is being involved in the soundtrack. No, from a game point of view, uh, I, I don't want to expect anything, because I know that Yu Suzuki will do good whatever is gonna do. I just have one single request, and is about the combat system. Uh, just but I know that he's gonna do it better anyway. He doesn't need us to tell him what to do, right? It is Yu Suzuki. But yes, I really hope to have a better combat system, and story wise, I'd like to see a bit more. Uh, maybe a little twist about what's happening right now in Japan. That's always been my actual one of my constant feel like what's actually happening, John. Why we don't see some kind of I wouldn't call them even flashback, some kind side stories of what is happening in Japan. Uh, yeah, maybe that.
Lovely. And I think we get a little bit of that in Shenmue 3 with the phone
Yeah,
calls, don't we? Which I thought was a really nice touch.
yeah. It's so Yu Suzuki style, huh? Because he doesn't want to show you, and it lets you live that with the phone call, with it's so Yu Suzuki.
Yeah, very, very much so. I'd like to actually. I mean, a perfect ending would be that Ryo ends up back in Japan when the series is done. He goes home, but we'll see. We'll see. And what about the anime? Obviously, that's apparently due for release at some point next year, and I suspect we'll see a trailer at some point this year. What are your hopes for that?
I genuinely can't wait. I'm a animal lover, of course. Really watching daily Crunchyroll, so I have a Crunchyroll subscriptions, of course. So when I knew that they were involved, I was like, okay, these guys, they are not always doing like super good products, but 1 out of 3 they are good products, and the brand is Shenmue, so they want to do good. Of course, I'm pretty sure about that. Yu Suzuki is involved. I'm really positive about the entire project, not only Shenmue the anime, but that's a way to give to the brand more brand awareness to people that never seen Shenmue as a game. So they're gonna be interested in the game anyway. Once they're gonna see the anime, they want to play it with their hands, because that's what's happening. You see the anime, you're so pumped about what's happening in the anime, and then you want to live it firsthand. uh, and also, I don't know if it's the first time that I'm not sure. I don't think so. That actually an old game got some kind of anime version out of it. But I think actually that it might be the case with Shenmue. I need to investigate on that one.
Yeah, I'd have to do my research on that one. I know Virtual Fighter got an anime years ago.
But that was more or less, at the same time. With Shenmue is kind of different, because of course this is a game from 20 years ago that is now getting an anime version, just to do what is is just to pump a new episode? Is it Shenmue 4, or they want to do something else with the brand that we do not know yet?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, they've got to have a plan behind it, haven't they, as to
Yeah,
what the wider goal is here. I mean, I'm assuming it's successful, and I hope it is.
yeah, of course.
But they must have some sort of plan in order, whether it's for Shenmue 4 or whether, as you say, it's for a different take on the brand and the franchise and where they want to take it. We don't know, but actually that's exciting because we don't know these things, and I think in some respects it probably benefits the franchise that there's that little bit of mystery around it with like. Whereas you look at the Shenmue 3 Kickstarter, we knew everything about it because it was a
Yeah,
Kickstarter, and we saw things that I think with Shenmue 4, assuming it's on the way and all the rest of it, we're not going to see because they'll probably go, right, we won't release a trailer until it's 100% ready. We won't be exposed to those sorts of things. So actually, I think it could benefit the franchise longer term with not just the anime, but also Shenmue 4 in the way that I think they can handle it in a more normal way.
yeah. They're gonna have way more freedom compared to Shenmue 3. That's with no doubt. Of course, doing things via Kickstarter, it does have, its good points, but also so many. Yeah, I wouldn't call them bad points, but yeah, it comes with the fact that you need to be transparent with your fan base and with the people that invested money. Yes, so I'm sure that they're gonna do good.
I am as well. And Kickstarter's a tough spot, but all's well that ends well, I think. So I'm going to take a break here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a track off of one of your EPs. This is off of Neo Yokozuka.
Nice.
And it is Investigating the House. So enjoy, everyone. Right, welcome back, everybody. That was Investigating the House from Neo Yukazuka. Just as a sort of a personal point, I was choosing these tracks yesterday evening, and I struggled really to choose any. Like, I was sat there going, "I like this one," so I had to really sort of go, right, what did I listen to, and think, oh, immediately, because there's some really good stuff here. And Investigating the House is one of those. It feels like it's really nicely paced, and it retains that authentic feel, I think, to the original track, but I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but it feels like a bit of boss music in a video game.
It's true. It's true. I had the same feeling actually when I finished the track, and I'm gonna tell you something. It wasn't done on purpose. So I'm one of those musicians. I wouldn't call myself a musician as well. I'm just a guy that has a hobby. I like, to play music, but I'm trying always to go with the flow.
Yeah.
It's not like I plan a song, from the beginning to go some certain ways, and I decide a structure. I'm not more like, yeah, this sounds good. Let's
Hmm.
go ahead with that. And often it does work. Some other times, at the end of the day, you'll see that I'm not happy with the result, but they're all my children. So, some children are good, some other are not that good. So
Yeah, yeah.
it is what it is.
No, absolutely, and I think that's part of making music, isn't it? It's experimentation. It's trying, does something work? Does something not work? Does this sound good? Does this not sound good? And I think that's part of the creativity of any musician out there. I mean, I've played bass guitar in bands over years,
Nice.
and I mean, I wouldn't ever consider myself naturally talented at music at all in any way, shape, or form. That's probably why they put me on bass guitar, quite frankly. But um, that enjoyment of creating something, it's nice. And I'm going to sort of touch into that now. And you talked just previously about sort of you started playing music when you're around 10, and that if something has a good soundtrack, you instantly hook. Can you talk me through a little bit of your musical inspiration, your history, any bands, instruments, etc., and when did you really start producing your own stuff?
Wow, that's a cool one. So actively, I started playing guitar
Yeah.
when that's also connected somehow to Japan, because it was because of a manga, honestly. I was reading at the time. I think it was something like 12 or 13. I was already kind of playing. Like my grandfather had a huge piano, and
Hmm.
everything that was going there, I was always intrigued to make my own music. Always kind of with the sad feeling, because I always had this kind of way of making music, which is kind of sad, always playing in minor. And it started there. I don't know why. I just feel it like fascinating. And then around, I think, 12, 13, I started reading a manga, what is called Back.
Right.
That it was about, this guy Koyuki, that out of nowhere he met this guy that is playing guitar, then he started playing guitar, and then they discovered that he had a huge voice, and I was like, yeah, I can be that guy, because I was able to sing. I had a decent voice, and I wanted to play guitar, so I started playing guitar. My father bought me a Squire Stratocaster, which is, I think, the go-to for everyone when they
Yeah,
want to
yeah,
start with the guitar,
definitely.
and my 15 watts Ibanez amp. And when I started, I think the first song that I learned is, of course, "Smoke on the Water" by the Purple.
Yeah, everybody does
And
that on guitar.
man, I played that for like what, 5 months, and my father, my mother, they hated me. Like, please stop that. And and I was like, yeah. So that was the time when actually I started, playing with the guitar. But I have to confess that I'm not good with, studying stuff. I always been, but in everything that I'm doing, I don't like to get a book, or listen to a teacher. I always been someone that pretty, manual on everything. That being, music, that being video game, that being computers, and so on. So it wasn't easy to progress
Yeah,
if, of course, you're not followed by anyone. So I took the short way. I wanted to start doing properly music, so I had a decent voice. I said, okay, then I'm gonna be a singer. And I actually had my first band at, I think it was 15.
Oh, nice, nice.
Uh, yeah, and it went, yeah, it moved forward until I left Sicily basically in 7 years ago. Of course, I had different bands, but with the longest one, we toured around Italy as well.
Oh, fantastic.
Did video clips, couple of albums. It was the beginning of everything. Looking at the material that we produced, those days, I'm a bit, ashamed of, all the different style that we were using. When we were young, it was like, I don't give a damn. Let's do what we want. But yeah, really good memories, and that was the beginning. I mean, that's where I really started actively, doing gigs, producing my music. Of course, when you're in a band, I was more working around uh, writing lyrics and the uh, all the melodies around the singing and so on, the vocal tracks. Uh, it's only when I actually moved here in the UK that being here alone, I started playing my own music. I started creating entirely songs from scratch, playing everything on my own. So I didn't know how to play guitar more or less, and that's where the entire you know music creation process started. I started experimenting with synths. I started experimenting with the guitar, bass guitar, drums, and so on and so on. And it brought me where I'm at today. But again, it's completely self-taught. I always try to avoid following any guidelines. And possibly, if a real musician come here and they have a look on how I'm composing music, they come to me and say like, "Man, what the heck are you doing?" But it's just a way for me to relax, enjoy what I really like doing, and apparently people appreciate the music that I'm producing, so I'm happy about that one.
They certainly do. I mean, I know your Ryo X stuff has been around for a few years now,
Yeah.
and I think as you've produced more EPs and more music, I think you've got more and more traction behind it now. And obviously, I think you're well known in the community, and the music is excellent. I've never heard a bad thing said about it. I mean, obviously, James put one of your EPs on the Shenmue World, which was fantastic to see that on there. So it's got it out to a lot of other people as well. So it's testament to the quality of the stuff you're putting out, that it's whenever you release something, there's a buzz behind it.
Which is something that always surprised me because I really, it's like okay, so especially when I'm so critical about my work, and out of an EP maybe with 4 or 5 tracks, there's only maybe just one song which I'm really convinced about, and the rest is like, man, are people gonna like this? And then maybe it's completely the other way around. The track that is like the most is the one that I wasn't expecting. So every time that I publish something, it's like, okay, let's see how it's gonna go, and what people will say. I do not expect nothing, and then at the end of the day, there's always this big buzz, with everyone sharing the Twitter post or even on Facebook, people buying my EPs, which is something like that is still crazy for me. Uh, and yeah, I'm so happy about this community. I'm now I'm trying to diversify a bit. The uh, of what I'm producing because, of course, I don't want even to focus exclusively on Shenmue because at some point, the music is gonna finish, even if there is loads of original composition done. Especially, I don't know, with Shenmue 3, we had the soundtrack and there are something like 200 different tracks. But yeah, now I'm trying to explore a bit more also other games that I do like because people, they started, coming to me with requests. Can you please do, a remix of this song fire from this game? I'd love to do that, but I am also one of those musicians that needs to be somehow connected emotionally to what he's doing, right?
Yeah,
So if it's not the case with the request, it's even hard for me to even start doing a remix because I really don't feel it in my heart. It's like an empty song, and you end up doing something that it doesn't have a soul.
Yeah, and music's all about. I don't know. There's a passion behind it. There's a message behind the music, whatever it is, be it rock, be it pop, be it synth, or whatever it is. That if it's just created for creation's sake,
Yeah,
I think I don't know. Lose that. It feels empty. Is probably the way I put it. Actually, having been in bands myself, and you're writing, the part of the creation process is the enjoyment of it. And if you're creating things because you're being, you're told to, I don't know.
yeah,
I just think it feels a bit empty. But that's just my opinion on that.
yeah. That was the main point of discussion with all of my bands. Every time that I had to put in I don't know, a vocal line or write some lyrics, like Ricardo, you're late. You really should write those lines. And I was like, guys, but if I don't feel like it, it's not like I can push myself in doing that because it wouldn't be genuine. It wouldn't be written with the heart. It doesn't have a soul at that point. Uh, and I actually have to say that it did brings to some unpleasant situation with some of my previous band. But that's the way that I'm working. It's not like I'm doing that professionally, and then I have deadlines and that I have to respect. And especially when you are on an underground band and you want to make good music, you need to take advantage of everything. And I think that the you know the best weapon that you do have at that point is to write things from your heart. You need to transmit your feelings. And then if you're forcing to yourself to do music, then you're just doing something wrong at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to disparage anybody who's a professional musician who does it for a
Yeah, of
job.
course.
But yeah, you do hear of musicians getting burnt out because they are constantly pumping out music. They're pumping out stuff all the time, and they get lost with it, and it's a shame. But we talk about this creativity and the music has to have a soul, has to have a connection to it. Obviously, you have that connection with Shenmue, and it's clear from what we were talking about earlier in terms of the soundtrack. So, when did you start experimenting with Shenmue and synthwave, and how did that all sort of piece together into sort of your earlier stuff, if you like?
There's a nice story behind that because my best friend that is still in Sicily, so basically we are now seeing each other, I don't know, once every 2 years when I go back to Italy. But we're always in contact. We always had, the same passions. But I never was able to, give him the passion about Shenmue. For some reason, he was more of a Final Fantasy guy, so he had his passions, but I never was able to transmit the passion for Shenmue. At some point, he decided to start making video games with another couple of friends back in Sicily. And then he come back to me and like, Ricardo, have you ever played, synth music? And I was like, honestly, no. I know actually how to write that because, of course, I did write things on MIDI and composing stuff, but never actually really invested time in doing that specific genre, which I didn't even know at that stage. I mean, actually, I haven't listened. I did listen to few songs at the time, but I didn't know that there was a niche about synthwave, retrowave, 80s sounds. So he started sending me like 20 different songs as a like, okay, try to study, the structure of the songs. Try to study how they are making this because we are making a game which has, a story in the space. It's like sci-fi, and we want a soundtrack that is basically synthwave, and that's what I've done. So I helped them, and the first song that I tried, in order to find the right way of composing music, I said, okay, let's try to remix something that I do know and that I do love. And first things in mind was Shenmue, and I started with the melody from Earth and Sea, which is actually the first song that I did put online. and that becomes the beginning of everything. So that worked because that song, as you hear it right now, is the exact same song that I actually did as a first synthwave song.
Yep, yep. I can hear it in my head actually.
And that was the beginning of everything. It was my friend, saying to me like, Ricardo, this song needs to go online because I'm pretty sure that people, that do love Shenmue will love this song because it mixes the two things perfectly. And I was like, are you sure? Because I'm not entirely convinced about this. And that's the beginning of my journey with the Shen wave.
Sounds like a really sort of natural journey into it. And obviously, then you release it, and your Shenwave stuff starts picking up some traction. People start liking it. So then, when did you sort of think, right, okay, I can produce more of this? When did you start experimenting with the other Shenmue songs as part of this sort of Shenwave project, if you like?
So it comes naturally because people were asking, more and more about, this type of work, and I was like, okay, there's just tons of stuff. But if you notice that there's actually a pattern in my first, I think, four releases. Basically, they are all stuff from Shenmue One,
Yes, yeah.
and there's a reason behind that. Shenmue One is my favorite games, and I think that out of now the entire three games, it still has the best music. Mainly because the influence is more Japanese than Chinese compared to the other two games. If you take in consideration already like Shenmue 2, you can feel that the uh, the music is already switching from solemn Japanese music to more Chinese oriented with the haru and all the other Chinese instruments, which is not something that I do not like because I love it, but my love is Japanese traditional music, which is what I'm trying to do right now.
And it infuses it really well together because listening to your music before I came on air, you can hear it has like a nice undercurrent of those Japanese or Chinese instruments underneath it. That's almost like you trying to think of the word sort of a base layer for it, and then you've built your sort of your synthwave sound upon it. That's certainly with uh, investigating the house. I found that, and one of the tracks that I'm going to play in a bit, Shenfa, I find that again, you've got you got her theme just underneath it, nice and quietly, but it builds really, really nicely to a sort of very powerful moment about halfway into the song. And I love music like that builds up slowly, then comes really hits a high sort of halfway, 2/3 through. That's just a personal thing, of course, but that's the sort of thing I like. Now, you're talking about Chinese and Japanese instruments as well, and obviously equipment for any musician. And if any musicians out there listening to this, and you haven't got more than 6 guitars, who are you? Because most guitarists I know do. Um, how have you gone about sort of identifying your equipment, getting the right things together in order to create what you're putting out now?
So today, now with what 5 years in the making, because I think actually it's yes 2017. So yeah, I would
Yeah.
say for 4 years, right? So the first four Shen waves EPs basically were created with all freeware stuff,
Hmm.
apart from Logic on Mac. So I'm always working on Mac devices.
Yeah, of course.
Uh, the first concept of Heart and Sea was made actually on what's the name of the other program? GarageBand, which is
Oh
the free
yes.
version, right? So that's where I started. I was like, okay, maybe, but okay, I can spend money to buy at least, the premium version, which was Logic Pro, which
Yeah.
really opened lots of possibilities. And it does have, lots of synth instruments already in there. There is a nice plugin called Alchemy, which includes lots of really nice synth sounds that are they are all used within my first four shell waves. At that point, I knew that I needed something more. Also because I was craving for having, more professional sounds, more professional equipment. And yeah, I started buying plugins, started investing money because, of course, the the EP were generating profit at the end of the day. At the beginning, I think with the first two Shenmue EP that were released around when the Kickstarter campaign was announced, I also decided that I invested all that money that people were paying for the EPs into financing Shenmue 3. That's what I did. So I kind of invested like something like $400 out of Shenmue's into Shenmue 3. But then when I started to actively generate money, I was like, okay, I'm going to invest this in buying new equipment. And today is I think I finally had my final rig, which is new Mac Mini with the newest M1 processor from Apple. And I bought tons of other plugins. I think I spent something like at least 2Ks on everything. But I think I have the final solution for producing music. I don't know actually if you listen to my. I kind of did a new take on a possible trailer for Shenmue 3.
Yes, I saw that, and it's blooming brilliant as well.
That's where I wanted actually to try my new setup, right? Because this new Mac is way more powerful. I can run, heavy plugins, and I tried to give it a more orchestral, let's say, take on it. So maybe you'll see also some orchestral EPs out there in the future.
That would be really good. And if anybody hasn't seen this trailer for Shenmue 3 that Ryo X has put together, I would absolutely suggest you check out his website, check out his Twitter page, because it is on there and it is a fantastic piece of work. And I even saw that Cedric Biscay himself retweeted it and made some comments on it, which was really nice to see.
Thank you. It did get actually quite a good buzz. The Cedric Biscay sent me a private message, and it was like, man, that was super cool. And I was like, oh man, I'm so happy you did enjoy that. So it's always nice, when people, recognize that the work that you're doing is good, but it's good because it's coming from your heart. I mean, I did that because I was feeling like doing that for Shenmue.
Yeah, and that's the end of the day. It's something that unites this community is the love for Shenmue, be it the music, be it anything else. And when
Yeah,
somebody like Cedric or I know Ryoji Aichi has messaged you about
yeah.
potentially collaborating, but I'll talk about that in a bit. It just goes to show actually the love that people have for your music, which is really nice to see. So on that note, I'm going to stop us there for a minute, and we're going to play another track. This is off of Shenwave EP1, and I've already talked about this. This is called Shenfa. Welcome back, everybody. That was Shenfa from Shenwave EP number one. As I sort of already said, I love this song. It's got the original Shenfa theme in there, and so it was a nice little undercurrent. And I just like the fact that it builds up to about halfway into the song, then it becomes a really powerful melody, and it really gives it that punch, and you can feel that authentic Shenmue feel. But it mixes so well with the synth wave. It just fits. It's a really lovely song.
That's that's one of my favorite songs from my earliest production, honestly. And as you say, the way that it builds up, that's the way that I'm always trying to do stuff. But it doesn't always go that way because, of course, as I said earlier, I'm trying to go with the flow, and it doesn't always work. But super proud of this track. Honestly, is I think is one of them. I might do some kind of re-remix,
Yeah.
because yeah, this early production, of course, is done with, as I said, freeware plugins. So I'm always curious about how that things would sound without changing structure, without just no revolutions at all, just adding the new sounds to it. I don't know. I might try that at some point if I'm going to have the time.
Yeah, that's the key one, having the time to do it with
Yeah.
real life, isn't it? Um, I want to talk about collaborations actually now, because obviously you're an active part of the Shenmue community anyway. I will talk about Shenmue Italia itself in a bit. But one of your most recent releases, Shire, you worked with Shenmue community member and cosplayer Erin. How did that sort of come about? How did you get in touch, and how did that work, that collab?
So that was completely random. At some point, you know what happened? I was actually composing Shirei, and I already had the concept in mind about having these four songs, each one identifying one of the four heavenly beasts. And I was like, you know what? It would be really cool to have, video clips about each one song with people dressed as one of the heavenly beasts. But we do only know about Landi and the other one, of course, being Nielsen. And I was like, but there's someone in the Shenmue community that did that as a cosplay. And I had this idea in mind about doing a video clip with some kind, of focus on mainly on the face, which is what actually we ended up doing. And I found a mock-up video, and I shared that with Aaron. So we were already like sending direct messages over Twitters, and I was like, okay, if you're okay with doing this, maybe we can find a way to collaborate. She was on board with that like straight away. She's also very shy, so she was like, I'm not sure I want to show my face, around doing a video. But she was, man, she did such an amazing job, really. And she did everything by herself. The only thing that I did was like I was sharing on a weekly basis all the updates that I did to the song because I didn't have the final structure of the song yet in place. And of course, she wanted something to work on in order to, create all the different transitions between the different scenes. And once the structure was done, yeah, she started working on that, and she did an amazing. So everything that you can see in the video, from an editing point of view, it has been done by Aaron, which is amazing. You can see the background that is done with the green screen. And apparently, she did film everything with the iPhone, which I was like, "Man, this is crazy."
With an iPhone?
Yes.
That's really impressive, because I thought it would have been done on some sort of professional setup.
I had the exact same feeling, and then she was like, "No, I found this app on the iPhone." I was like, "What is this on with the iPhone, man?" And the results was incredible. When she sent me like a 15 seconds like preview, I was like, "No, I wasn't expecting something that good." I was like, wow. And she's such a star, really. She's so down to earth. It's so nice talking to her. And I think actually that the video and the song actually got the some good buzz. People really appreciate that. And lots of people in Japan actually they became aware of my music, and now they are following me on Twitter or on Spotify, and they really like this kind of music. I'm talking about the original stuff, right? So I'm talking because on the Spotify I did put only the my original works, such as Shirei, of course.
These sort of collabs, obviously, it sounds quite natural. And Erin's been around the community for a little while now, which is she's got a name for herself in terms of she does some really good cosplay work, which is unreal. Actually, I still can't believe she did that on an iPhone. That's
And it's
mind
crazy.
blowing to
Yeah,
me.
it's crazy.
I'm gonna have to ask how she did that. That's crazy. I sit there thinking, oh, she's probably got a camera, a professional setup, does it all on an iPhone, and probably makes everybody
Yeah.
else look silly.
At the beginning, one of my idea was like same way that she did, the photo shoots for dressed as Nyarsun. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm happy to pay for a video done in the same locations. And she told me that apparently, actually, you can't do video dressed as cosplay outside in Japan.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, wow, that's a weird rule, but it is what it is. And I'm happy that it did and ended up this way because the result was amazing. And it didn't cost money for me, it didn't cost money for her. So happy days.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of collaborations, I know you've had conversations with Ryuji about potentially working together. I was trying to dig out the tweet actually because I know it was mentioned on Twitter, but I couldn't find it. Has that progressed into anything yet, or is it still in the works?
It's still in the works. So he's a really busy man.
Yeah, of course.
And of course it's not easy to find the right things, but something is coming. He told me that I don't want to spoiler anything yet, but he told me that something will come in his YouTube account sooner or later.
Fantastic. So we'll keep an eye out for that. We don't want to spoil it for anybody, so we'll leave it there for now. But speaking of sort of other musical projects, what are you working on currently in terms of your music?
So I actually started some other collaboration with some other people around the internet, but really trying to explore new stuff,
Yeah.
because that's actually how you learn to do new stuff, right? So you just try to mix up a bit. And I actually started this week the work for my new original EP, which will always be in the style of traditional Chinese Japanese music mixed with synthwave. But I'm trying to go a bit more down the 80s sound of it, trying to find more a similar structure to how the sound were done in the 80s.
So thinking, I'm just so like sort of classic 80s synthwave
Yes,
sound beats, those sorts of things.
exactly. When I think about 80s sounds, I always think about the main theme of Beverly Hills Cop.
Yeah. Oh my word, yes.
That's my concept of 80s sounds, and I want to mix that with Chinese and Japanese music.
It definitely works because your Shenmue stuff, as a basis, would suggest certainly it does work. Do you have a? I mean, I don't want to put too many time frames on this, but when do you aim to release this EP?
Well, usually, it takes, it really depends, but it doesn't take less than a month. So I already have 3 songs ready when it comes to structure. And now it's all about, adding the right instruments. Then I need to find the fourth song, which is always, I don't know why I always end up doing this. I always have 3 songs ready and then I miss one. I don't know why. But yeah, potentially, let's say somewhere around August sounds like a decent time frame.
Good. So make sure you keep an eye out for that, everybody. If you're listening to this, and do check out Ryo X's Bandcamp. All the links will be in the various descriptions, either on YouTube or the podcast provider of your choice when you're listening to this. So we're going to take another short break now, and I'm going to play another track. This is from Shenwave number 3, and this is called Hong Kong. Welcome back, everybody. That was Hong Kong from Shenwave number 3. My sort of personal feeling of this, I really like how it's stripped right back actually in parts, and then sort of kicked back in. And I liked how you integrated the Chinese instruments in this particular track. And well, I found it easy listening, is the way I put it.
It's I think it's one of those songs where I try to experiment in the most. And the reference here to Shenmue are really, really subtle. I mean, the theme is not as pronounced as maybe in the other songs, and it gave me more freedom, honestly, in composing the song. Still, I would say that it's still on my top 10.
It's a very good track, and you are right. Actually, I think of like "Investigating the House," which is the first track we played. The main theme of that song, the main sort of feel of that song, is quite pronounced.
Yeah.
Whereas if you compare it to Hong Kong, actually, it's very, very subtle. But actually, in some respects, I think, and this is my opinion, listening to your EPs from all the way through, I think that's happened more and more as you started experimenting with things more. I think as your music's matured, mature is probably the wrong word, but you see where as your music's developed, I think that's happened naturally.
Yeah, I think actually it's also a way for me to, experimenting more, right?
Yeah,
So I didn't to want to sound, like someone that was entirely stripping the Shenmue music and making remix out of, the famous riffs from the Ost. That's why I actually try to give more and putting more of me in the remixes. But I think that Shenmue 6, which is I think it is the last one that I released for Shenmue. That's like I came back to again giving a really strong presence to the main themes of the series. But you can really feel the difference compared to the initial Shenmue 1 and 2.
yeah.
I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's just about how I feel on the spot. Do I want to use this? Yes, no. So this is what it is.
Yeah, absolutely, and it just feels like a natural progression of your music as you go through your EPs, which is really, really nice. Moving away from your music, because obviously you are well known for your music in the Shenmue community, but actually you're also the owner of Shenmue Italia, the fan site, which I will also put links to in the description when this is published. Could you talk me through sort of your initial idea for setting that up, getting involved in the translation project for Shenmue on PC, and what your inspiration was for starting up that website?
So we started with the project in 2018. I think it was already actually in my mind since ages, honestly.
Yeah,
Because let's be honest, Shenmue is not a big thing in Italy. Not many people knows about it, and of course, there's no buzz about it. And there wasn't even a fan site or anything. I was like, I really need to fix this. I really need to, let people know that we are here and that this game is amazing. And yeah, I found some people around the web, mainly on Facebook. Also thanks to the 500K group. Uh, that were interested in actually having some kind of website where we shared news, uh, in the like of Shenmue Dojo, of course, or Shenmue Master, and so on and so on. And we ended up actually building Shenmue Italia, which is still online, but is not really updated anymore. There's a reason behind that. Uh, In 2019, we released the translation for Shenmue 1. That project there, and it really took ages because it was in the pipeline, because I just actually gave some kind of, a place to stay to the guys that were already working on it. They were working on this like at least for 3 or 4 years, because the amount of text in Shenmue 1 is insane, of course.
yes, it is.
And then I tried to apply my experience of project management on this. So I kind of became the boss around there, and try to put everything in place. And it did work. Man, we really got lots of buzz around it from official newspapers. On We actually ended up also on IGN on Italy, and people rediscovered Shenmue thanks to that, because one of the main things was like, I don't want to play this game first because it's old, but I can actually say, okay, even if it's old, I can play it. That's fine. But man, it's in English. I really don't want to take my time translating that. Don't understand half of the things that are happening, and then with translation, it becomes accessible to everyone. Such a shame that there's not an official translation for the PS4 version, but I mean, we did our best.
You did a very good job on it, and I know it's generated a buzz, especially with Shenmue One. Are there plans to go into Shenmue Two, or is that going to be, because that's a heck of a project to do Shenmue Two?
So, people are still asking me. Officially, we started the project. I can't say that it's proceeding right now because it's, of course, is like on hold. We do have something like 35% of the text translated already, and already that 35% is way more of what we've done with Shenmue One. And I'm like, man, this is never gonna end. Uh, Unluckily, the team left because, of course, there was, and when it happened actually once we got Shenmue 3. Then the motivation went down. It was more like the team said, okay, we actually, reached our goal, which it was creating buds and having Shenmue 3. But then, of course, with just being me managing the project, I tried to, move forward with it for a while, but it didn't really work. So it's there on hold, waiting for the right person to arrive and pick it up again.
Yep.
I'm a busy man, which is why also the Shenmue is not really updated. Also because let's be straight, there's not many news in the last couple of months. But I have to say that it's my fault that I haven't been updating that. I'm working from home, super busy the entire day. When I have few minutes, I'm working on other blog. People do not know that I'm also a food blogger.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
yeah, which it takes me quite a lot of time. And then when I do have some free time, the other thing that I want to do is playing music. So I put my love for Shenmue in music.
Yeah, and I sympathise actually running the dojo with James. It does take up a lot of time.
Yeah.
It does when you consider, yeah, if a news post break, for example, it can take you've got to make sure the news is correct. You've got to get your images, you've got to get your posts up, and that can take you a little bit of time. Let alone, like, I don't know, say they announce Shenmue 4 tomorrow and how crazy that would go.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I share your sympathies, and I do hope that that Italian translation of two does get off the ground, and because it would be a really good asset for the community, especially on PC, where I find lots of people are picking it up because it's always Shenmue One and Two is on Steam, and it's always fairly cheap at the moment, so it bounces in and out of sales quite frequently. So it'd be really good if that translation did come about.
I really hope, man, it's gonna happen. At some point, I was like, if I'm gonna win some money, either whatever way it's gonna be, or I'm gonna invest, a bit amount of money to hire someone to do the translation for me, and then just publishing it. Because it is a shame, as you said, it would give, the chance to a lot of people to jump on the bandwagon and enjoy that amazing adventure, which is Shenmue.
Yeah, definitely, and we all do things like this out of our passion for Shenmue. We're not paid
Yeah.
for it; we just love doing it, don't we? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we all have to balance this with real life, real jobs, and sometimes speaking to our wives and partners now and again, depending.
Exactly, exactly. But man, that's our passion. I mean, actually, now it's more than 20 years, isn't it? So we're here to stay, and I really feels like Rio and his story. He's one of my friends. I want to know what's happening. I want to do the best for this brand to succeed. So here we are, investing our money, investing our time, creating new friendships. Because at the end of the day, that's also what's happening, right? You met lots of people from the community. You end up, having real friendships. So man, this game got everything, really.
It does, and it's a game that will keep on giving, and the job isn't done yet. And I
Yeah,
think we've got Shenmue 4 to get. Hashtag Let's get Shenmue 4 on the 4th of every month. I know you join in on that and make
yeah,
sure that all the community groups with the 500k, Shenmue Master, Shenmue Forever, Phantom River Stone, yourself, Shenmue Italia, get on board with this tweetathon, and let's make Shenmue 4 a reality. I do believe it will be, but we need to make sure that they know about it. So
yeah.
my final question to bring us to a close is: do you have a final message for the Shenmue community?
Keep supporting the game, keep playing it, keep the buzz alive. Always trying to preach it to other people. It's not a game. It is more than that. When you jump on it, you will notice that it's really like living another life that you haven't lived. It's it really gives you something that other games are not able to transmit. So really keep pushing. Let's do all our best, and I'm sure that we will all together we will succeed.
We will. And on that note, I'd just like to say thank you, Ryo X, for taking the time out of your Saturday morning to join me. It's been a fantastic hour and a bit that I've spent with you. I'm so glad I've managed to finally get you on the show.
Matt, thanks a lot for your time. It really was nice to share my love for Shenmue with you and with the community.
Fantastic. So I'm going to bring us to a close now. I'm going to use a track off of your Charade EP. This is called Zuzuko. This is one of my favorites. I love the intimate feel of this song and the Chinese instruments hook that's in this song. So thank you everybody for taking the time to listen to this interview. I will be back, I'm sure, with another one very, very soon. Thank you to Ryo X for joining me. Have a good day, everyone, and I will see you all very soon. This is Zuzuko.